Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the M3 Market Update. I'm hoping this update becomes your one-stop shop for all things housing and commercial real estate. In these updates each week, I focus on listings for sale in about 60 local markets that I'm tracking, rent prices, as well as Airbnb stats. I also provide some demographic information, foreclosure, bankruptcy, etc. Other stats and metrics that can help us understand what's going on in your local market. The idea of these updates is to give you the information you need to define a path or plan for what's ahead. There's a lot going on right now. I keep saying that, but it is so true. There are so many headwinds that we are facing with the debt ceiling crisis, with the banks, etc. I'm sure that many people are looking all around trying to figure out, what's going on. Is this recession coming? Is it going to impact you? Well, in my opinion, based on all the work that I've done over the past 3 years, and it all started when a boss came to me and said, hey, things are going really well for us now in housing, but I need you to tell me when you think rates are about to rise. And so I spent a ton of time diving into macroeconomics, trying to figure out what was going on. And, it was that work, as well as my experience in mortgage and housing, that really brought me where I am today. And that's hoping to provide you all the information to get through the next few years, because I absolutely believe that this cycle, the default cycle, has not even started yet. It basically was extended from COVID. I spend a little bit of time talking about that in my deep dive on loss mitigation and mortgage. Highly recommend that you would check that out if you haven't watched it yet. It's got a ton of information about why you can't rely on your old understanding of default and even credit when it comes to consumers in the housing space. So there's so much happening at once. There's so many people screaming out there. There's so many news articles that are contradicting themselves. So what I'm trying to do here is really break it all down for you and keep you sort of grounded in reality and reality in context of your local situation, because real estate is local. And we'll talk about that a lot more as I kind of go into my focus this week on the M3 Market Update, which you can find on Substack. For this week, I decided to focus a little bit about commercial real estate because there is a lot going on in that space and everybody sees it as the next shoe to drop. I see it as the next shoe to drop for sure, but I see housing going hand in hand because a lot of these commercial real estate buildings some of them very new, are being built, to house new activity. And then you had the new build housing sites that followed what people thought was going to be, just exponential growth. The fact is, no one can really tell you exactly how much growth there has been. What it looks like is it slowed. Additionally, I would say that, the growth kind of felt like a lot because there was a lot of activity, a lot of construction workers, a lot of people supporting that construction, a lot of trucks driving on the road, creating congestion. And so I think that, when I talk to people in these local cities, they say things to me like, well, 200 people are moving here every single day. And I say, where are you getting that information? And if you push them, they are getting that information from old studies. Again, this is something I'm working on, but honestly, I don't think any of us are going to be able to provide a picture that's going to be satisfying because there's just not a good data source to understand exactly how many people have moved and who will stay. On my travels, again, this was just anecdotal, many people told me that they were moving back to the places, moving back to where they came from. And, when I was traveling primarily amongst the Sun Belt cities. So there's a lot happening, and things can be deceiving. And for me, even as I drive down the road on my, if I'm going to the store, I can pass these office buildings and never think much about them. And so this week, what I decided to do was to go deep in the office park that's literally right next to me. I can see the buildings from my balcony and look at the state of what was going on. I knew back in COVID it had shut down, but there really hasn't been a reason for me to go into this neighborhood, into this office park, because once some of the restaurants shut down, I decided, hey, well, why would I even go over there? So I went there this week. Let me first start, before we get into the specific updates, quickly telling you the story. So I moved here in 2019. This location was just south of Pittsburgh. It would be a 20-minute commute to my actual office. But as I think some of you can guess, I do a lot of traveling, and so, often I would just be going to the airport. And one of the reasons I chose this location is they were building an airport connector, and I thought that would be great. The funny thing about that is the airport connector is now finished. Nobody uses it because it's a toll. And the only reason it was taking time to get to the airport before that was the construction for the airport connector. And so every time I've actually decided to take that connector, I'm usually the only car. But moving back again for a second. So that was one of the reasons I chose this location. The other is because as a business traveler, I was super excited to find this spot. It was, a bunch of offices, but a bunch of high-end buildings. They look great. There was a gym, there was a bar, exercise studio, there was a hair salon, there's a little bank. They had a little downtown street. It looked like a little main street with a bunch of restaurants. And I could tell these were my people. These were professionals who traveled a lot. Probably a lot of them went home on the weekends, but, traveled in during the week for work, and then would go out, after work to one of these restaurants. But then, of course, COVID happened and the entire place was shut down. It became a total ghost town. Many of the restaurants soon closed. They couldn't make it with the delivery business. There weren't a ton of people who actually stayed here. So decided to go and take a little tour of that office park this week. Went on Monday, and again, I know everybody thinks I'm a doomsayer and I see the worst, but I actually am a very positive person, and I always kind of see a glass half full. So I was very surprised to see what I saw. And, there are so many buildings. I don't know the exact count. It's at least 20, and it's not a 20 of a one story. Some of these are really big buildings. And there is hardly anybody here. I encourage you to check out the Substack. I included a ton of pictures, but the concept behind this place where I live, South Point, was basically a work and play oasis. There were condos with a golf course right there, a Doodles nursery, an actual academy, a very large fitness facility, an arena for sports and hockey. The idea was that you could live and play and work here. But the reality, I think, is turning out to be and I forgot, an urgent care in case you got injured on your walk or your golf outing. So everything was supposed to be located very close proximity. This is very similar to some of the places I saw down in Florida for retirees, like almost creating a little town. And so I thought, this is perfect for me because where I live, kind of adjacent to the office park, you can kind of pretend that you're in the middle of nowhere, and it's very quiet. So I loved it. So going around this time, my first time really deep back into this office park in some time, it was shocking. There are hardly any of these buildings are occupied. A lot of them, maybe 10 cars in the parking lot. So encourage you to check out the pictures. You'll get a sense for yourself. Went to the Doodles nursery, 4 cars in the parking lot, 1 car in the parking lot for the urgent care. A lot of the restaurants, as I mentioned, had been shut down. There was one that's supposed to be coming soon, but we'll wait and see, based on the banking crisis and this sort of credit crunch or constriction that we're seeing. To me, I find it highly unlikely that a lot of these new projects will actually get finished because I don't think they'll find the funding. And one thing that we know about a lot of commercial real estate is they're non-recourse loans, meaning that the lenders can't come after the owners, their assets. So essentially, these owners are going to hand back the keys and say, "Good luck, lender." And so we know a lot of those lenders were regional banks, and we know what's happening to them. But they're also private lenders who probably have a little less reasons to care. If these weren't, say, some sort of loan that was, if it was a multifamily, it might be backed by Fannie or Freddie. But if not, you have different levels of commitment. And so these owners could walk away, hand the keys back to whoever lent them that money. And to be honest with you, when you see how many of these empty buildings it's somewhat surprising that there hasn't been more what I would call mischief or criminal activity in this area. But, I think a lot of that is because they do a lot to make it look like people are still coming into the offices there. If you drive around the complex, you'll see a lot of landscapers doing their work, making sure everything looks really pretty and really nice, all but a couple of buildings. There were some not looking so great in the back of the park. But, taking the care to make it look like these buildings are still a place of work. But in reality, there's not a lot of people coming to work here, and certainly not enough to sustain this entire office park, which is massive, almost 600 acres. So, this is just one example that happens to be right next door. And I think a lot of you know that I primarily focus on housing. I've been talking a lot about commercial real estate, but this is right next door to me. And so, the title of my Substack this week was, the dreams of yesteryear right next door, because I think there was a lot of hope about this specific office park, a lot of dreams. And I think that a lot of that is now going out the window. And I think, unfortunately, I know the main sort of developer who was behind a lot of this. He actually died during COVID, or he was kind of the guy who sort of got everybody to come together in this location. So I think that, it's time we start to have new dreams, because if we don't have new dreams, things could go south very quickly. On Twitter today, I posted an article just about, what's happening with cities who are realizing suddenly they're not going to have the tax revenue they thought they were going to have. And they're lamenting that. And, what I said is, okay, great, but what are we going to do about it? And then, of course, because we are so polarized, a lot of the responses were, blaming and shaming somebody else. Well, they should do this, they should do that. But guys, it's we. So, we are going to have to figure out what to do in this crisis, or it's going to impact all of us. It's going to impact your home values. It's going to impact our safety. This, in my opinion, these empty buildings, these empty houses are quickly going to become a safety and soundness issue. And so I don't think that we can sit back and say it's somebody else's problem. Whether it's people are like, it's a government problem, it's a private problem. It's really all of our problems, because I'm a firm believer that when you get humans together, you actually can come up with solutions. I believe that this doesn't necessarily have to mean the end of this dream. But if no one is going to sort of stand up to start trying to bring people together, then what you have are a bunch of owners who have no vested interest in this location. they will walk away, and ultimately everybody is going to lose out. And these are all Class A buildings. None of them are I don't think there are any Class B or C here in this office park. All of the ones I saw were Class A. And if you recall, a lot of people were saying, well, there shouldn't be any issue with like Class A. This is where we get to all real estate is local, because there could be significant issues if something doesn't come to save this particular office park. And as I know, there's already been negative demographic growth in Pittsburgh. Listings have been going up since the beginning of the year. Rent has been going down. Pittsburgh is suffering. They were a tech hub. That's part of it. And also from a demographic perspective. So it is going to take ingenuity to figure out how to repurpose this space. And with 20 buildings, it's not going to, just fixing one of these buildings is not going to fix the issue. And of course, right down the road, what do you have is a new build site. It's a Ryan new build site, and they've been building there for about 3 years. It's kind of a cool little spot. It's we have a big trail here called the Montour Trail. I think it's about 20 miles long. It's amazing. And so these homes are being built right along the trail to kind of, so families could theoretically like just take the stroller down to the trail and do their daily walks. Unfortunately, though, there's not a lot of takers in this particular subdivision, and there's a lot in progress. Again, go check the pics out, you'll see. But what I found sort of the most ironic or disheartening or something is that, of course, you have all the new built, a lot of it not even, started yet. A lot of lots, you can just see them, empty lots where construction's going to start. Some of them say sold, but not a lot of them. But as you leave the subdivision, and I put this picture in the Substack as well, there's a sign that says no bidding wars here. And I'm afraid there probably aren't going to be any bidding wars. And I would say that this subdivision is one of the 3 subdivisions that I saw while I was on the road that were less than $400,000. These are selling in the $300,000 range. So these are actually somewhat affordable, but there's enough options closer to Pittsburgh that if some big company doesn't come into this office park, there's not going to be a lot of reason for that housing. And this is what I want everyone to understand, is that so much of the housing was built to support the industry that is no longer coming. If you think about Round Rock, Texas, where they were going to have the huge Amazon warehouse, that got shelved. So many projects being shelved. So again, guys, just because you heard 3 years ago Apple was coming to your city, validate those facts, please, because they're not coming anymore in most of these places. And so we have to sort of open our eyes with a new perspective to see the reality, because if we're not thinking this way, we're not going to see it. And if we don't see it, we're not going to be aware. One thing I like to say a lot, so do other people, but if you don't do macro, macro does you. And I would say that in this situation, if you aren't paying attention, this housing cycle is going to cause havoc. So again, not trying to scare anyone, not trying to be the doomsayer that everybody says I am. I just want everybody to be prepared. Okay, that was a long preamble, but just wanted to kind of go through what I wrote on Substack this week. Again, encourage you to check out those pics if nothing else. It is, in my opinion, it's something to take notice of. Okay, listings this week, we had a lot of increases in listings. So 43 of the 60 cities I'm now tracking had increases in listings. And a lot of these weren't just 1 or 2. So I definitely feel that, in some areas, people are starting to understand, or the stress is getting to an escalation point, and they are starting to list these homes. And so we'll jump into just the specific updates quickly here. So top cities with largest percent increase in listings for sale week over week. Coeur d'Alene at number one. Again, this is not good, 7.5%. Something definitely happening in Coeur d'Alene, and a little worried hearing as well even more information about just people thinking that, tourists it's going to be a really down season. So we'll keep our eye on this. San Ramon back up in this weekly one at 6.6%. Boise at 4.6%, Salt Lake City at about 4%, and Portland at 3.9%. So these are cities, a lot of listings being added. So guys, I understand that, we all have certain ideas about how we want things to go, but it's, again, important to pay attention to what's happening in your market. If you have questions, please reach out to me on LinkedIn and I can give you some more information about your specific market, because you may want to consider, if you have a home that you're thinking of selling in the next year, going ahead and just putting it on the market. There's no harm. It could be an annoyance, but, why not see what kind of interest you get? Because then, in 6 months, it won't be as surprising. So just would be something I'd recommend because I do think that after I'm still sort of focused on the end of Q3 is when I think things will start to really, the picture is going to turn darker. We'll see shades of darker before then, but I think by that point, no one's really going to be able to deny what's going on. Okay, so looking at one's top cities with largest increase in inventory from the start. Now, I started tracking these in January. Again, we can all look at Redfin's reports or Zillow reports or even the Fed, but those are all in a lag. What I'm trying to provide here is real-time information that will also give us an understanding of what's to come. Okay, so these are kind of the same names. They kind of move around, but it's interesting how they sort of change in rank week over week, and some of them, like Austin, just consistently start moving up the list. But San Ramon at 88%, San Francisco 75%, Coeur d'Alene 56%, San Jose 51%, Denver 51%, Austin 40.4%. Hoboken 30%. I do that every time. Boston 39%. So this is it's a lot of inventory, guys. And the thing that I noticed this week but didn't have time to really focus on is a lot of luxury listings. That'll probably be part of my update next week. Is I'll give you some of these picks, but I'm talking 26 million, 60 million. In some of these cities, a ton of luxury listings. And it made me think, are we going backwards of the K, meaning is it the top of the K down as this everything bubble starts to unwind? Okay, so rent this week, I think I've told you guys I use Real Pages. It's a live algorithm, but really the updates only kind of materially change once a month. And so this week, not a ton of action. Instead, what I posted was the Redfin article on cooling rents. And I definitely encourage you guys to check that out. It had year over year decreases in rent. Austin was at number one at negative 14.3%, Phoenix at negative 9.6%, Las Vegas at negative 7.1%. And remember, 2 weeks ago in Las Vegas, we had that huge increase in homes listed for sale. I'd say it's trending a tiny bit negative right now, but only by a handful of homes. So it's not increasing inventory. It's staying at that elevated level. And I actually expect it to start increasing here soon. Okay, so Airbnb, this was really interesting to me. So I told you guys last week I was going to do something a little different, and I I'm just looking at Memorial Day weekend for this week and next week, and I looked at the week prior because we saw these huge increases in average Airbnb prices for Memorial Day weekend a couple weeks ago, and so looked at them this week, and out of 60 cities, only 9 had any change whatsoever in the average price. Now, this has never happened. I look at these prices all the time. So it's curious to me. It'll be interesting to see if they persist for another week. I think people really, really, really want their Airbnbs to be booked at that price for Memorial Day. So it'll be interesting to watch this one, but I do think it's kind of notable, the cities that did have a decrease. Bakersfield, a negative almost 5.9%. This was a favor for somebody that I tracked. Most people aren't going to take an Airbnb in Bakersfield, as many people have told me, but it's one of the cities, so it's up there in the top. Austin down at negative 5.22%. Dallas at negative 3.9%, and Fort Lauderdale at negative 0.92%, so not even a percentage point. And then we had a few that increased. These are our hopeful cities. I am starting to refer to them as a bit delusional, so we'll see how this all shakes out. But Las Vegas had an increase of 7%, Augusta around 4%, Asheville around 3%, Seattle around 1.8%, Indianapolis 0.22%. So again, we'll be taking a look at these next week as well to see if these average prices increase or decrease. It could be either. As I mentioned last week, I have some family members that are doing big trips in May, and I think a lot of people are doing big trips in May. But this summer, we just got the consumer sentiment info, and it is not looking good. So those were the specific listening or updates this week on the different metrics that I'm tracking. I just want to sort of end today saying a couple of things. One is that there is a lot going on. I've mentioned this before, but Eurodollar University, I'm posting some additional shows in the show notes. I'd like for you guys, if you had a time, to check it out and to check out that daily briefing, because it will keep you in the know far more than mainstream media or anyone, just because it's talking about the plumbing of the financial system and what's really going on behind the scenes. And honestly, I have not been surprised by anything. So again, guys, this is going to be a pretty perilous time over the next few years. I think it's a good time to get a grounding in how all of this actually works, so that you can be prepared and understand, kind of what's to come and how we can actually navigate through it. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing I want to say is that we are just, we're better together. And what I mean by that is that it seems like everyone is looking for someone to blame or shame. The fact is that this is going to impact all of us, as I said earlier. And so we need to work together to figure out solutions. And I understand we're all busy and we have lives and we have obligations. But, it is still our responsibility to sort of be aware of these factors, how they impact us, and how our choices could be, impacted because of these activities in the banking system. So this is important, and I would just highly encourage everyone to sort of open their eyes in a way that maybe they haven't been open for some time because they haven't needed to be. But it's the time now to start really looking at your surroundings and understanding how what everyone seems to be happening, like on the West Coast, that's First Republic over there. This is coming soon to a city near you, as I've been saying. So just want everyone to, as you're driving to work each day or driving to pick up the kids, just look around, look at what you're saying. Does it jive with what you're reading? And, maybe look a little harder. Maybe there's landscapers at that nice new office building, but are there any cars in the parking lot? These are the types of things that we all should be looking for to understand the impacts to our neighborhoods, et cetera. So, okay, that's it for this week. Next week, I was hoping home prices from Redfin would be out when I was putting the update together, but they weren't. They should be out by the update next week. So we'll probably do a focus on home prices next week. Additionally, tomorrow, new construction survey will be out. I'll post something on Twitter. But in general, daily, there seems to be some type of doomy news, whether it's about the debt ceiling or the banking crisis. Hopefully, though, I find when it's a lot of negative news, the best thing that I can do is just, sort of come to an understanding of my own perspective, put it all in context, and make sure that I have a plan or a path of getting through it. So, thank you guys for listening yet again. I'm still making incremental improvements, more to come. Really appreciate it, but please reach out to me on Twitter at M3_Melody, MELODY, Melody Wright on LinkedIn, M3 Melody Market Update on Substack. I'm here with any questions that you may have. If you have a move upcoming, if you're thinking about purchasing a house for an investment or, for your primary home, please reach out to me with any questions. I'm happy to offer the information that I have. So thanks again for joining. I really appreciate it. Have a great day, guys. Thank you so much.